So we are finally here, the ending of the off season, the start of a new season. The clash is this coming weekend, and it's that time of the year again where I like to review what teams did throughout the silly season and the off season of last year, and see how they stack up compared to the previous season and what my expectations are for this season. Um, we're not gonna go in any particular order. I'm just gonna start with some random team, and then we're just gonna go from there. So, first up on the list is gonna be Colleague Racing. Colleague, as far as the Cup Series goes, they got rid of Daniel Hemrick and they replaced them with Ty Dillon. They're also renumbering the number 31 that Hemrick used to drive. They're switching over to the 10 car. Now, I've seen some people say that this is uh, a pretty downgrade move. That Ty Dillon is not much of anything. Uh, Now, I'm not saying that I'm not defending Ty Dillon in any way, shape, or form. That being said, I don't really think that swapping Daniel Hemrick for Ty Dillon is that much of a difference. Honestly, kind of feel like, if anything, they're the two of them are kind of like the same driver. Honestly, so it doesn't elevate the team. It doesn't move the needle as far as our cup program goes. But at least they don't take a step backward, in my opinion. Now for their Xfinity team, they did take a massive step forward. First of all, Allmendinger is back full time in the Cup Series, which means that this opens up the 10 as well as the 16, because they got rid of rather, Josh Williams is still on the team, and they also SVG. He is going to Trackhouse full time in the Cup Series, so they now have two full time slots to fill. They pick up Christian Eckes and Daniel Dye over from the Truck Series, the two McAnally guys. They move up to Xfinity. Daniel Dye will be in the 10, Christian Eckes in the 16. I feel like this is a pretty great move. There, you got two young guys there. Of course, you got Josh Williams there, but he's for the sponsorship. But especially Christian Eckes, I really like this move. I believe he's gonna have a slow start in the 16 as the season goes on. I feel like he's gonna improve as the season goes on. He had a great, and I mean an all-time great Truck Series season last year, so I have very high expectations for him. And while I don't think he's going to be Rookie of the Year, playoff contention is definitely within the realm of possibilities. So yeah, Colleague, they're starting to rebuild once again. I'm gonna give them a B. I'm gonna give them a B. They definitely taking the steps forward. I like these moves for them. I don't feel like in the Cup Series they actually moved forward with Allmendinger as their full-time guy and Ty Dillon and swapping Daniel Hemrick for Ty Dillon. I don't think it sets them back as much as they do. I feel like, Daniel Hemrick and Ty Dillon are like the same driver, but Christian Eckes and Daniel Dye in their Xfinity program, I feel like this is the main reason why they get the grade that they get. I really like this move for them. Speaking of Bill McAnally Racing, what that team is up to, they expanded to 4 full-time entries. Like I said, Christian Eckes and Daniel Dye are gone, unfortunately. But to replace them, they have Daniel Hemrick, who is back in the Truck Series. He is replacing Christian Eckes in the 19. And they also have Connor Mosak in the 81. The 81 truck that used to be the 43 that Daniel Dye run. He just went through a number change. Tyler Ankrum is back. And they also got Jack Wood back, this time full-time in the 91. If you remember, he was running on a part-time basis last season. Now they got him full-time. So they got 4 full-time trucks. I believe they ran 4 full-time trucks last year, but they only had 3 full-time guys. Now they got 4 full-time guys in this for this coming season. And just like Colleague, this team is also gonna get a B. I do believe Daniel Hemrick is going to bring the veteran presence that this team needs for this young crop of guys. Whether he becomes a title contender remains to be seen, but he will definitely be a playoff guy. I would like to say that he becomes a multi-time race winner in the Truck Series, but then again, it's Daniel Hemrick. At the very least, he's gonna be a playoff guy, and I would like to say he wins. I would like to say he wins a race, but I'm not pretty sure at this point. But he will bring the consistency and the stability that this team needs. Also, Connor Mosak. I know he got a bit of a bad rep when he was with Toyota 2-3 years ago. But this last year, he was picked up by Chevrolet. He ran a couple of races for, I believe, JR Motorsports in Xfinity, and he ran also that 7 truck for Spire in the Truck Series. And he did pretty well, especially in the Truck Series. He cleaned up a little bit of that bad rep he had with Toyota. And I'm going to go as far as to say that he has kind of found his home with the Chevy camp in the Truck Series, so him getting this full-time ride is honestly not that big of a deal, or not that big of a negative as some people have pointed out to me. But regardless, this is a kind of a good investment, a kind of like a low-risk, high-reward move to buy low on Connor Mosak. I think this move could pay off dividends. I don't know by how much, but I believe it's going to be serviceable in that 81 truck. And also Jack Wood, let's see what he does now that he's had some more additional starts. I believe he also spent a full season down in ARCA West, so let's see how much more experience he's gained ever since. So definitely a pretty interesting moves all around, but they're pretty solid, and I'm looking forward to see what these guys do. So yeah, I'm gonna give them a B. Staying in the Truck Series, we're going to take a look next up at Rackley War. This is the team that Ty Dillon used to run for last year. Now, obviously, he is with Colleague. His replacement is Dawson Sutton, who actually ran a couple of races late last season in the 25. I believe Ty Dillon was released early to allow for Dawson Sutton to run this couple of races. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't know much about Sutton. All I know is that he is the son of one of the team's owners. I already know some NASCAR fans they just have a stigma against drivers that are the sons of team owners or high-ranking executive. I already know some NASCAR fans just don't like that. But for what it's worth, even if I don't know much about him, all I know is that he is younger than Ty Dillon, and in the small sample size that he ran last season, he kinda ran pretty comparably to Ty Dillon. Of course, we didn't get to see much because of the small sample size, so it remains to be seen how he will perform. But the fact that he is younger is a plus. So I'm gonna give it a C, simply because there's a lot of uncertainty behind that move. But at the very least, this is not, or at the very least at the current moment, I don't feel this is the downgrade that some people are making it out to be. Remember that Ty Dillon is not much of anything either. So this move, they honestly got nothing to lose by making this move. What's the worst thing that could happen? Next up, we will take a look at an Xfinity Series team this time. It will be Big Machine Racing. Unfortunately for Big Machine, Parker Kligerman announced that he will be retiring from full-time competition. This, of course, leaves a big void that the team needed to fill out, because Kligerman was one hell of a driver for them. And they decided to go with Nick Sanchez, another one of those Truck Series guys, just like Christian Eckes and Daniel Dye. He was a Truck Series guy, and is tasked now with continuing or to build upon what Parker Kligerman left. So, as of right now, I'm gonna say, like Christian Eckes, like Daniel Dye, like almost every other rookie in Xfinity this year, Nick Sanchez is gonna go through some growing pains, and by the end of the season, he may not put up the numbers that Kligerman put up last season, or even in 2023 for that matter. That being said, he is younger than Kligerman, and the good thing about that is that you get to build upon that, or at the very least you have more time to build upon that than you did with Kligerman. The short term, there's gonna be some setbacks. They're gonna be dropping back a little bit in the short term. They might not even make the playoffs, especially since they are a single car team. You gotta remember that they don't have the equipment that other powerhouse teams like the JR Motorsports or the Joe Gibbs Racing have. That being said, for the long term, if they decide to keep Nick Sanchez for the long term, assuming that, I can see this working out in some capacity for them. I am a big believer in Nick Sanchez as well. So I'm going to give this move a B as well. This is a solid move, honestly. It's pretty unfortunate that Parker Kligerman just had to leave, but I feel like they did the most they could do with what was available. You could have gone with worse options at Nick Sanchez. There were way worse options out there, so this is actually a solid move for them. Moving on, we will go back to the Cup Series and talk about Spire Motorsports. This is a team that was pretty active in last year's silly season and all the way up until the off-season, because they also have a Truck Series operation. The big move, first of all, and this was announced in the summer of last year, they announced Rodney Childers as the new crew chief of their 7 car. Now, obviously, the assumption was that at the time Corey LaJoie was the driver of the 7, so people assumed that Corey LaJoie would be paired up with Rodney Childers. But as it turns out, not even a month after it was their Childers move was announced, the team decided to part ways with Corey LaJoie at season's end. And then, after the round of 16 was over, this was like starting the round of 12, like with 7 races left on the season, they decided to pull the plug early on LaJoie, and they decided to swap him with Rick Ward Racing for who was at the time their driver of the 51 car, Justin Haley. And Spire decided to keep Haley because he is on the roster for this year. So Justin Haley is their new driver of the 7. He is replacing Corey LaJoie, and he will be paired up with Rodney Childers as their crew chief for a second time with Spire, because if you remember, back when he was running in the Xfinity Series with Colleague, he was making Cup starts with Spire Motorsports in their 77 car. Now he is running full-time in the Cup Series for them, back in the fold for them, and with Rodney Childers, with a top-tier crew chief, there's going to be really some exciting things going on with Spire Motorsports, because you also got to remember Michael McDowell, which is the move that kicked off the entire silly season back in May. He was the first domino to fall, and he will be going to the 71, replacing Shane Smith. Carson Hocevar, of course, is still in the 77. He is kind of like their number one guy now, established himself as a number one guy now. And he's definitely going to be a driver to watch for, because he finished... he almost finished just outside the top 20 last season, so he could definitely be... He's definitely going to be a playoff bubble driver, maybe a playoff caliber driver if he ends up getting a win. So there's some exciting things coming out of their Cup Series operation. And as far as the Truck Series goes, the team actually expanded to 4 full-time entries. If you guys don't know, they ended their partnership with Rev Racing. I believe this was something that was going on since last year, a lawsuit going on between Kyle Busch Motorsports and Rev Racing. As you guys know, Spire, they purchased Kyle Busch Motorsports' entire Truck Series operation, which is what led to them expanding to 3 full-time teams, essentially, and they kept their partnership with Rev Racing as the 4th Spire car, quote-unquote. Well, now, with the news that Rev Racing was shut down, because they have ended their partnership with Rev Racing, looks like, or rather, Rev Racing shutting down because they ended their partnership with Spire. You guys know what I mean. Spire, apparently, they purchased some of the assets of Rev Racing, and they will be expanding to 4 full-time teams. Their 4th truck, as far as I know, will be numbered 07. Kind of interested to see what the number will look like. But so far, nothing has been announced yet. No driver has been announced for that car yet. We still don't know what they will be doing for that car. But yeah, they have a fourth. They have a fourth truck. What we do know is that Raja Caruth will be back in the 71. Also, Corey Day will be running the number 7 truck on a part-time basis. If you guys don't know, Corey Day is a Hendrick Motorsports development driver. He has tons of talent, extremely talented kid. I was pretty shocked when he was only announced as a part-time schedule. At first I thought it was because of the age restriction, but he's actually 19 years old. He's turning 20 which means that he's turning 20 this year. So I'm kind of disappointed that he isn't running full-time, but still, I honestly, 8 races, 8 truck races, which is what I've read, like 7 or 8 truck races a year. It's not that bad. I really hope he gets a full-time shot for 2026 with Spire. I don't want this guy to get rushed, honestly. Like again, I believe in what Rick Hendrick is doing, and I definitely believe he's gonna do what's best for this Corey Day kid, but. Yeah, some exciting things going on already from Spire. Oh, and they also replaced Chase Purdy with the ARCA champion, Andres Perez de Lara, in the 77. Now, if you guys don't know who he is, it's okay. No, but I don't even watch the ARCA series anyways, but I know Andres Perez because, as you guys know, I watch my NASCAR races. I watch them on Fox Sports 3, the Latin American Fox Sports 3. And this guy is a sensation simply because he's a Mexican-born driver. There was a lot of hype surrounding his ARCA title, even if he didn't win a single race, which is honestly a little bit of a black mark. And the main reason why people don't have much expectation out of him is because he didn't win a Truck Series race. Despite being an ARCA champion, he's moving up to the Truck Series winless. I do think he's gonna be an upgrade over Chase Purdy, simply because he actually performed in ARCA, unlike Purdy. That being said, my expectations for him are pretty moderate, and given the fact that he didn't win a race in ARCA, that kind of heavily weighs in a lot. So while I believe he's gonna be an upgrade over Purdy, it's gonna be like a big upgrade in the long term. But hey, at least they got rid of Chase Purdy. Like, his time with the team had run out. I'm giving this overall, and I've kind of talked about Spire a lot, but it's because they made moves all over the board, and all of these moves were for the better. I'm gonna give them an A. I would have given them an A+ if they gave, like, Corey Day, let's say, more races to prove himself. Not like a full-time gig, not necessarily, but like 10 to 15 races, because 7 to 8 is just like too little for me. But regardless, solid A, solid moves all around the board for Spire Motorsports. I definitely have a lot of expectations for them. This team is coming. This team is coming up. Speaking of the team they sent Corey LaJoie to, Rick Ward Racing is up next. They're not even keeping Corey LaJoie as their full-time driver. Instead, they're bringing Cody Ware back full-time in the 51. And they also downsized to one full-time car because their second charter, they leased it to RFK Racing. RFK will open up a third team, but we will be talking about RFK a little bit later. They will still run the second car on a part-time basis. So far, the only race that has been confirmed has been the Daytona 500, and Corey LaJoie is going to be there. But other than that, honestly, some people are going to say this is kind of an unpopular opinion, but when it comes to Rick Ware Racing, I feel like less is more. If you're going to remember, this is the same team that not even 5 years ago, they were running 4 full-time teams. And this was like late in the Gen 6 era. They were running 4 full-time teams, essentially 4 rolling chicanes. that were pretty slow, and the only camera time they got during races was when they were getting lapped down by the leaders. They went from that to downsizing to 2 full-time teams, and now they have only 1 full-time team to worry about, and 2, the second car is part-time. I feel like less is more. And sure, Cody Ware may not be the best driver to, start this rebuild or this new face of the team with. But he has been for the team for quite some time, and he's become like kind of their utility guy. Trust me, there are you could have done worse than Cody Ware, which is honestly shocking. But trust me, there are a lot of worse drivers out there than Cody Ware. Honestly, I'm gonna give this a C+. I don't hate this move as much as other people do, or at the very least, some people may disregard it. But when it comes to Rick Ware Racing, you guys don't know how annoying that was, how dark those times were. They were basically wasting 4 charters, and now they went from that to actually a team that is willing to compete. They look like they were doing something with Justin Haley last season. Justin Haley was running top 10, was getting top 10s on speed with that team. Unfortunately, Haley is now with Spire. And now it looks like Cody Ware is going to be kind of like their placeholder while they look for that next guy, which is honestly not the worst course of action to take, but so far, I don't hate what they have done. Again, like I said, when it comes to Rick Ware Racing, less is more for that team. I like it. And since I briefly mentioned RFK Racing and the fact that Rick Ware had lent one of their charters over to them, I feel like this will be a great segue into our next team. So yeah, RFK Racing. Originally, they weren't supposed to expand to 3 full-time teams, or at the very least, Keselowski, he briefly explored the idea when the Stewart-Haas Racing charters were up for sale. Eventually, he decided that he didn't have enough funding at the time, but then as the season went on, they eventually landed Kroger as a sponsor. Kroger moved away from JTG Doherty Racing. And you guys, if you guys don't know, Kroger is a big sponsor in NASCAR. They have almost single-handedly funded the entire JTG Doherty operation. So, with all that extra funding, Keselowski, he now knew that was the time for them to expand to a 3rd full-time operation. That was the right time. Of course, by that time, the SHR charters, they already had buyers, and then Gene Haas kept the 4th charter for himself. So Keselowski had to get a little bit creative, and thankfully, since RFK Racing just recently struck an alliance with Rick Ware Racing, RFK got into an agreement for Rick Ware Racing to lease one of their charters over to RFK, so they can expand to a 3rd full-time team, or rather bring over that 60 car that they were running part-time last season and bring it full-time into the fold. So, yep, the 60 car is now full-time in the Cup Series, and Ryan Preece is gonna be their driver. And yeah, that's all there is to it. It's a pretty small. It's just one move that they made, but it's pretty major because they landed a big sponsor, first of all, and they also landed a pretty quality driver in Ryan Preece. I know some people may call Ryan Preece a little bit overrated and stuff like that because he just hasn't performed much, but you gotta remember that he just came into Stewart-Haas Racing at the wrong place at the wrong time. If you have seen him race for quality, when he has quality equipment with Joe Gibbs Racing, the Xfinity Series, he's won races. With David Gilliland Racing, or rather, Track on Garage, back then they were called David Gilliland Racing and they were running Fords. Ryan Preece ran some races for them, and he managed to win for that team. I believe he was a back-to-back winner at Nashville in 21 and 2022. So he has won. When he has quality equipment, he can compete for wins. And RFK Racing, just like Spire, that this team is cooking, and I like what they're cooking. So I'm gonna give them an A minus. They came out as pretty big winners in the offseason with them landing a big sponsor and getting a pretty, I'll say a pretty quality driver that is somewhat underrated in today's Cup Series scene. Staying with the Fords, let's go over to Haas Factory Team next. Now, I'm not going to waste too much time here because I made a whole video about them and the history that that led to them becoming Haas Factory Team with the 41 car, how Cole Custer became their driver and stuff. So I'm not going to waste much time with them. All I'm going to say is, as far as their Xfinity program goes, they got Sheldon Creed and Sam Mayer to replace Cole Custer and Riley Herbst. And these are two quality drivers in Xfinity. Obviously, Sheldon Creed and Sam Mayer, neither of them are better than Cole Custer, but I'd say both of them are better than Riley Herbst if you really wanna go and compare drivers. So they didn't really lose much, but at the same time they didn't gain much. But yeah, their Cup Series operation, Custer to the 41, it just makes sense. It just made sense. I believe even Kevin Harvick said it himself in his podcast when the announcement was made about Haas Factory Team that if it's not Cole Custer, then I don't know what that team is doing. So, just for that, they get a B plus. Overall, a solid move. Sheldon Creed and Sam Mayer as part of their Xfinity program is a solid move. Cole Custer to the 41 is just perfect. Okay, he's a perfect fit to the team. He was not just a Stewart Haas racing driver. He was more of a Gene Haas's personal driver. So it just made sense to have him as their guy to lead this new era of Gene Haas racing forward. Moving back to the Xfinity Series, we will now take a look at what Sam Mayer's former team is up to, JR Motorsports. And this is another team that, in my opinion, ended up being a big winner in the offseason, if only for the fact that the DEI stylized number 8 is back in all of its glory. It's finally free from the clutches of the Wicked Witch of the South. And I know, and Dale Jr. is already putting it to good use. He's finally putting it as the number of Sammy Smith. He got restylized to the DEI number 8. Now some people are upset at the fact that the number 8 is being run by Sammy Smith and it's not like their all-star car and stuff. Honestly, I don't subscribe to that narrative as much. I don't really support it. I mean, if Junior wants it, then I wouldn't be opposed to that. But Sammy Smith had ran the 8 before it was before this whole situation with the new stylized number 8 ran, and no one said a thing when Sammy Smith was running the old number 8. So now that it's stylized to the DEI style number 8, people now want it to be the all-star car. That doesn't really make any sense. I'm just happy that the number 8 is back. Okay. As far as the drivers go, though. Brandon Jones is out, and Sam Mayer is also out. Like I said, Mayer is with Haas Factory Team. Brandon Jones returned to Joe Gibbs Racing. Replacing them are two rookies that have a lot of hype, and I mean a lot of hype. Carson Cavapel from the Cars Late Model Tour Series, from the Cars Tour Late Model Series, replacing Sam Mayer in the 1, and then in the 88 car, because you got to remember the 88 car was a part-time team, it's going to be Connor Silich. It's going to be running the 88 full-time on a deal with Trackhouse, a very similar deal to the one that SVG had with Colleague Racing last year. He's going to be he's still a Trackhouse driver, but he's just signed with Junior Motorsports for the time being, while Trackhouse decides what they're going to do to him for their Cup Series plans moving forward. This is an A+ move. That I don't have much to say about that. I don't have much to say about that. This is an A+ move. You replace Brandon Jones, who wasn't doing anything on that car. And you also replaced a mayor who he was a solid driver, yeah, but Connor Silich and Carson Cavappo had way more potential than he had. This also means that the 9 is gonna become their all-star car. SVG and Ross Chastain have already been announced to run a couple of races for them in that 9 car. It still remains to be seen whether the 9 car is gonna be a full-time ride or it's just gonna be like a part-time ride for veteran Cup drivers to hop in for a couple starts. Still remains to be seen, but as of right now, it looks like the 9 is gonna be that part-time 5th car, kind of like the 88. We still don't know if Dale Jr. will be running a couple of races there. I don't know. It's very unlikely. It's pretty possible that we already might have seen the last of him in the 88. I don't know if he's gonna be coming back to run a couple of races in the 9, but overall, like I said, Junior Motorsports, one of the big winners this offseason, if only for the fact that they got 2. They replaced two of the drivers in the roster for 2 youngsters with big potential. So that alone makes it a win. Another team that came out as a big winner this offseason was Trackhouse Racing. As you guys know, because I have spoken about it ad nauseum, they profited. This is one of the teams who profited from Storehouse Racing's downfall. They took one of their charters that SHR was selling, and they expanded to 3 cars. Car number is 88, and SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen, will be their driver. Originally, their driver was supposed to be Zane Smith, and after McDowell, replaced him in the 71 at Spire, I really thought that it was gonna be because Trackhouse was gonna bring Zane Smith to the fold. If you guys know, McDowell to the 71 was the first domino that kicked off silly season, and at that time, we really thought that Zane Smith was gonna move over to the main fold at Trackhouse along with Chastain and Suarez. However, it wasn't long before news came out that Trackhouse had released Zane Smith from his contract because apparently they had found Connor Silich. They were more invested in Connor Silich and also investing in SVG. They wanted to. SVG was tearing it up in the Xfinity road courses, and you guys know SVG. He wasn't gonna stay in Xfinity for much longer. If he came to NASCAR, it was to go Cup racing. So that one Xfinity season was just to prepare him for the big show. So unfortunately, this left Zane as the odd man out, especially after Suarez signed an extension with the team, and a lot of people thought at first that Suarez was going to be the one on the hot seat, but Justin Marks, he quickly quieted those talks. Unfortunately, them giving up on Zane Smith, not even a year into his stint with Trackhouse. Unfortunately, that's the main reason why they don't get a higher grade, but regardless, the fact that they expanded to 3 full-time teams, they finally brought SVG full-time to the Cup Series. They also got Red Bull as a sponsor. They got a sponsorship deal with Red Bull. Red Bull is back in NASCAR. You love to see it. And Connor Silich is also set to debut at COTA, make his Cup Series debut at COTA with that Red Bull car. So yeah, very, very great move from Trackhouse. Like I said, they are one of the big winners this offseason. Unfortunately, they only get a B+ because, again, like I said, that whole Zane Smith debacle, it kind of put a damper on. It kind of puts a damper on it. I still feel they could have found, they should have made it work, or at the very least, they should have put in a little bit more effort on him. I know Connor Silich, Connor Silich is extremely talented, but they shouldn't. I still believe they shouldn't have given up on Zane Smith a little too early. Maybe they should have explored like maybe an Xfinity ride for him, probably a colleague racing, or some other place, because Zane Smith was a quality driver as well. I believe Zane Smith can mature and grow up into a quality driver. So it was kind of sucky to see Trackhouse just give up on him a little bit too early. But hey, at least Zane Smith landed on his feet pretty well.
at Front Row Motorsports, which is the team that we're going to talk about next. So yeah, Zane Smith is back in the 38, which is ironically the ride that he was supposed to get back in 2023 before he signed the deal with Trackhouse. If you guys remember, Zane Smith was getting a couple of starts in the 38, and Todd Gilliland was beginning. It felt like Todd Gilliland was beginning to get shafted. And then when Zane Smith got signed away by Trackhouse, Front Row decided to keep Todd Gilliland anyways, and they signed into an extension as well. And then when Zane Smith was released by Trackhouse, the rumor was, well, he was going to land. The original rumor was that he was going to go back at Front Row Motorsports, but it looks like at first Front Row didn't want him because he was considered damaged goods, because he was a Ford guy who went to Chevy, and it looks like Ford didn't want him back. But eventually they worked out, they patched up some things, and Zane Smith is back at the ride that he was supposedly gonna get in 2024 if he didn't get the deal at Trackhouse. So he landed on his feet. Todd Gilliland moves over to the 34, so they keep both Gilliland and Zane Smith. Of course, McDowell left, yeah, but they keep Todd Gilliland, and they brought back Zane Smith, and they also had Noah Gragson in a third car, the number 4. Because just like Trackhouse, Front Row Motorsports also profited from Storehouse Racing's downfall. They got one of their charters. So their Cup Series team is pretty good. But the main reason why this team gets an A+ for me is their Truck Series operation. Because in the Truck Series, they have Lane Riggs, a sophomore Lane Riggs, who just had a great finish to his rookie season, just had a great second half to the Truck Series season. He won 2 races in the playoffs. I believe Lane Riggs is going to be a championship level threat. But most importantly, they got Chandler Smith. Yeah, Chandler Smith is, he moves down to the Truck Series. He was running Xfinity for Joe Gibbs, but after all that talk about how Chandler Smith, he just didn't have a ride for next year, and he was possibly going to go back to the construction business and take care of his family's construction business. Thankfully, that wasn't the case, and fortunately for us, we'll be able to see a great talented driver, because like I said, I'm a huge Chandler Smith believer. I believe he's one of the most talented prospects in NASCAR right now. I'm just so happy that he's just not gonna step away from NASCAR for a lack of, for not being able to find a ride due to a lack of sponsorship or a lack of funding or whatever. I am so glad that Front Row Motorsports they took a chance on him, and not only that, they expanded to a second full-time operation just for him to run in. That is just amazing. It really shows that Front Row Motorsports is a team that is building the right way. This is a team that just cares about building the team the right way. Sponsorship be damned. I am so excited to see what these guys, what these two guys do. What the pairing of Chandler Smith and Lane Riggs is gonna look like. They're quickly, Front Row Motorsports is quickly becoming my favorite team in NASCAR, and they're definitely gonna be one of my teams to watch as well as Spire Motorsports this coming season. They're definitely cooking. Like I said, they're definitely cooking. Continuing on with the trend of teams that benefited from Storehouse Racing's downfall. Next up, we have Wood Brothers Racing. Now, unlike Trackhouse Racing, unlike Front Row Motorsports, the two previous teams we have discussed, the Wood Brothers, they did not benefit by purchasing a charter from the shutting down SHR. Rather, they benefited by signing away one of their drivers. In this case being Josh Berry. He is replacing Harrison Burton. I don't think I need to elaborate on why this is a pretty good move for them. I mean, Josh Berry is just a better talented driver than Harrison Burton, more experience. This is a solid B move, honestly. I feel like Josh Berry is gonna help rebuild that operation. He could probably help them turn into, at the very least, a top 25 team. I know the Cup Series field is like extremely competitive, especially this year, so it's going to be pretty hard for them to even crack the top 20, but top 25 is pretty doable, especially with the fact that the 21 is kind of like a fourth Penske car. Of course, Wood Brothers, they still have their solid alliance with Penske, and Penske is one of the Tier 1 Ford teams, so Josh Berry would definitely benefit from that. At the very least, he's going to have a better season than the one that he had in the Ford car at Stewart-Haas Racing. But yeah, solid move all around. Just a no-brainer for Wood Brothers Racing. Harrison Burton's time was up. As for Harrison Burton, he will be moving back down to the Xfinity Series. He's going to be driving the now renumbered 25 car for AM Racing in the Xfinity Series. And he will be tasked with helping rebuild the team after Hailie Deegan kinda left the team in shambles. I say kind of because, as you guys know, you cannot blame it all on the driver. Sure, Hailie Deegan was not doing anything to help that team, but the team wasn't helping her either. It was a lose-lose combination from the very beginning, it looks like, and unfortunately, it ended up with Hailie Deegan leaving the team mid-season, and even after Hailie Deegan left, the team was just in shambles, which kind of proves my point that Hailie was just not the source of all the team's problems. She was just merely not helping them. So yeah, do I think Harrison Burton is gonna improve that team? Yes, he definitely will. The big question is by how much. And that's the main reason why I'm only giving this move a B+, as opposed to like an A-, or an A rank move, is because I just don't know how much, by how much Harrison Burton is gonna improve. Like, we know they're gonna improve. They got Harrison Burton, a driver with Cup Series experience, a guy who has won in the Xfinity Series. The big question is by how much, because even if they improve, you gotta remember, AM Racing is a small team. They are a single car Xfinity team, kind of like Big Machine Racing. If Harrison Burton manages to bring this team back to what it was during the Brett Moffitt year, during the year Brett Moffitt was with them, so 2023, if he can do that, then that's already a win. That's already a win for them. Of course, I don't think, that's going to be a pretty tall task because Brett Moffitt placed that team like top 15 in drivers' points. And he was a mid-pack guy who could finish in the top 10. If Harrison Burton can do that, then that's going to be a move that ended up being a B+ move on paper that ended up becoming an A+. So this is a good move, kind of a bit of a no-brainer of a move, but at the same time, there are a few question marks regarding how much Harrison can elevate that team. I just realized we haven't talked about a single Toyota team, despite almost being 45 minutes into the video. So let's switch things up a little bit and let's knock all of them out, because there's only like 4 Toyota teams I'm going to be talking about. So we're going to start with Joe Gibbs Racing first. Of course, on the Cup Series side, they clearly won because they got the best free agent of the 2024 class. That was Chase Briscoe, replacing the retiring Martin Truex Jr. in the 19. And again, considering the other free agents that were there, like the other options out there, they clearly got the best driver of the bunch. They clearly got the best free agent of the bunch. So great job there. As for their Xfinity program, however, that's where I'm a little bit more iffy about it. Of course, they got Brandon Jones back, which is honestly at this point is whatever. But it's really a damn shame that they're not giving Ryan Truex a full-time ride, instead passing him up in favor of Taylor Gray. Now, obviously, I'm not going to get into William Sawalich that much because he has been running ARCA for quite a couple of years now, so we knew the signs were there that he was eventually going to end up on a full-time Xfinity ride at some point. and he was also gonna skip the truck series in the process. Um, as for Taylor Gray, however, this is the real head scratcher. And don't get me wrong, the guy definitely has potential. He is objectively better than his older brother Tanner Gray. That being said, I feel like they may have rushed him. Because he has not won a single truck series race yet. Now, of course, he was pretty close to winning that Martinsville race and locking himself in the championship 4 before Christian Eckes just dumped him out of the way. That being said, though, I feel like he would have benefited more from running another truck series season full time and then having that 54 car be the all-star car that drivers like the aforementioned Eric Almirola and Ryan Truex can drive. I feel like Taylor Gray would have benefited more from another full-time truck season plus a part-time season in Xfinity. And again, there were way better and then again, there were way better options for that 54 car. Of course, the one that immediately comes to mind is Ryan Truex, but it's a damn shame that they don't that they didn't even consider him, which is the main reason why I'm only giving Joe Gibbs Racing a B. The Chase Briscoe signing was an A-tier move in my opinion. Maybe I'm overrating Chase Briscoe, sure, but I'm a big Chase Briscoe believer. I've been following him ever since 2017, been a fan of him since 2017, and I know what he is capable of when he actually has competitive equipment. Stewart-Haas Racing, they were by the time Chase Briscoe arrived to their Cup Series operation in 21, they were already starting to regress. So he just came on the wrong team. He just came to the team at the wrong time. That's just all I'm trying to say. Now that he is with a more stable team and one of the top tier organizations at that, I definitely think that's when he's going to be fully unlocked and the wins are going to come in. He's definitely going to be a playoff caliber driver for years to come. Maybe a dark horse contender, maybe make the championship 4 in during his peak, maybe. But who knows? All I'm gonna say is the Cup Series move was A tier, but their Xfinity moves, they just dropped the rating back to a B. Honestly, I'm just not sold on their Xfinity lineup. Staying in the Toyota camp, let's move on to 2311 Racing. Now, like Front Row Motorsports, 2311, they also expanded over to 3 full-time teams by acquiring one of the Stewart-Haas Racing charters. And also, like Front Row Motorsports, and I forgot to mention this while I was talking about them, they are involved in a lawsuit with NASCAR that is still ongoing to this day. I believe this is not breaking news. It has been going on for a couple of months now. What was a big deal was that because these are the two teams that they that did not sign NASCAR's charter agreement. NASCAR said that if they moved forward with the lawsuit, and because they didn't sign the charter agreement, they could run the risk of losing their charters. NASCAR would repossess those charters, and both 2311 and Front Row, they will be running as open teams. Now, in a recent development, they filed an injunction, and the judge approved that, which thankfully will allow both 2311 and Front Row Motorsports to run as charter teams while also pursuing the lawsuit. So, on the racing side of things, no issues there. That issue has been, for the time being, it has been resolved, or at the very least, it has been pulled aside. Which is good because, like I said, 2311, they expanded to a third full-time operation. The driver selection is a little bit iffy though. For quite a while, I really thought he was gonna be, a lot of people, myself included, wanted Corey Heim to be their third driver because, Corey Heim has been the reserve driver for 2311 and Legacy Motor Club. He kind of served that role last year when Eric Jones sat out, when Eric Jones suffered an injury due to a hard crash at Talladega. Corey Heim was there to replace him for 2 races before Eric Jones came back. He also ran at Nashville in 2311 on the third 2311 car. He was not replacing anyone. This was already a planned. Start. So with him having gained that reputation as kind of like Toyota's utility guy and stuff like that for their Cup Series teams, it was kind of logical that because of that connection, Corey Heim was gonna be the favorite to land that third 2311 charter or that third Legacy charter if one of those two teams were to expand. Now, obviously, it was 2311 that expanded, and we thought that he was gonna be the guy, but no. Unfortunately, he was passed up once again in favor of Riley Herbst. Because, Riley Herbst has money and stuff like that, and I'm going to say this, it's not as bad of a move as you people think, because over the last 2 seasons, Riley Herbst has kind of grown into a pretty serviceable driver. He already has a couple of Xfinity wins under his belt. So it's not as bad of a move as some people might say, but that being said, obviously, considering what was out there, you could have done so much better. So because of this, I'm giving this move a C. Honestly, I don't hate it, but you could have done so much better than Riley Herbst. Speaking of Corey Heim, let's talk about another team that also passed up on him. That team being Sam Hunt Racing. This one really hurts because he was just a perfect fit for that team. Look, if he wasn't going to get the 2311 Cup right, at the very least he could have just... At the very least, I was hoping that he got the 26 car in Xfinity, because he felt like such a perfect fit for that team. He not only, and if you watch Corey Heim in a race for that team in 2024, you would know that he was not only giving them the best finishes of that year, he was also giving them some of the best finishes that team had in its entire history, period. Not to mention, he would have also been part of this stacked rookie class with the likes of Christian Eckes, Taylor Gray, Nick Sanchez, guys that he has been racing around with in the Truck Series. He would have been part of that stacked rookie class. But instead, they go with Dean Thompson. And I know this signing was already made after the announcement that Corey Heim was going to stay in the Truck Series. But even if you weren't gonna go, even if Corey Heim, even if it wasn't gonna be Corey Heim, you still had Ryan Truex out there. Ryan Truex was still a free agent, and he was also racing. I believe he ran a race with Sam Hunt Racing late in the season, and a lot of people thought that it was gonna be a teaser for Ryan Truex to be their full-time driver in the 26. So even if it wasn't gonna be Corey Heim, you still had options. You didn't have to just go with Dean Thompson. The only saving grace of this whole situation for them is that at the very least they are getting more support from Toyota and JGR, maybe even getting into a technical alliance with them, which is great. But other than that, this is not enough. This is not enough to get them out of the. This is not enough for me to give them anything higher than a D+. Honestly, this is the first losing team in this offseason, because every other team they either stayed put, or either they made moves that didn't represent a step back for them, or they just majorly improved. This is a major step back for them. Even with the fact that they're gonna get more support from JDR and Toyota, that's not gonna save the fact that Dean Thompson is gonna be underperforming for them. That's just not. It's not gonna hide that fact. I'm sorry. This is a D+. And moving down to the Truck Series, as I previously mentioned, we have Tricon Garage. So for Tricon, like I said, they have Corey Heim back, but at this point, I'm more inclined to say this is a bad move for them, if only for the fact that Corey Heim should not be running in the Truck Series anymore. He's got nothing left to prove in that series. But as far as the team goes, at least they got that one guy that can carry them for the entire season, because the rest of the team, outside of Corey Hine, the rest of the team is pretty mediocre, not gonna lie. It is important to mention, they will attempt the Daytona 500 with Truex in the 56, so they will be dipping their toes in the Cup Series. That being said, this is more than likely gonna be a one-race deal. Hell, the main reason they're running in the Cup Series in the first place is because 2311 Racing, they cannot provide a fourth car for Truex because they're involved in a lawsuit, and because of that, they do not have the time or money to provide a fourth car for Truex. So that's where Tricon Garage more than likely came in. Anyways, as far as the Truck Series operation goes, Dean Thompson and Taylor Gray, with the two of them moving up to the Xfinity Series, that leaves two full-time slots open. Enter Gio Ruggiero and Tony Bradinger. Now, of course, we know who we kind of know who Tony Bradinger is at this point. She's gonna be the Dean Thompson replacement, someone that can bring in sponsorship, while being kind of serviceable, I guess. Honestly, you don't gain much from either driver. Like, she's not an upgrade for Dean Thompson, but she's not a downgrade either. I'd say they're both around on the same level. Same kind of like same thing I said with Daniel Hemrick and Ty Dillon when I was like talking about colleague racing. Replacing Dean Thompson with Tony Bradinger, it doesn't move the needle, but it doesn't set you back. It doesn't set you back. So it's an okay move. Same thing goes with Taylor Gray, with replacing Taylor Gray with Gio Ruggiero. Kind of like they're kind of like the same boat there. Now, obviously, a lot of people have said that Gio Ruggiero, he is kind of a downgrade from Taylor Gray. I'm inclined to disagree, simply because even if I don't pay attention to much of the ARCA series, I pulled up some of Ruggiero's stats, and they're pretty solid. Okay, the kid has potential. Okay, maybe he matures into a Taylor Gray type of driver in the future, where he becomes like their best or second best drivers depending on the day. That being said, it's gonna take some time. This guy is not Xfinity, or even he's far from Xfinity or even Cup Series material, let alone that. But he could be 3-4 years of Truck Series experience down the line. I could see him competing for a few wins, kind of like Taylor Gray did. Speaking of Gray, Tanner Gray is also back, but he's as mediocre as they come. As for their fifth truck, because you gotta remember, Tricon, they are a Toyota's powerhouse Truck Series team with 5 full-time teams. Their fifth truck is a part-time, part-time. It's a rotation car with several drivers. Among the drivers that have been confirmed to drive for them in 2025, that number 1 truck, it's gonna be Brent Cruz, which is another one of Toyota's development drivers, and Lawless Allen. He is moving over from Rion Brothers Racing. He's no longer running full-time. He's going to be racing for Tricon Garage for a part-time schedule. And even if some people say, have some negative stuff to say about Lawless Allen, and I'm going to be honest with you, sure, I'm not a big Lawless Allen fan either, but the fact that he's not running full-time, it's honestly fine. This is a buy low move, a low-risk, high-reward move. He's now running on a team that has better equipment than whatever he was running at Rion Brothers Racing. No offense to that team, but there's a clear difference between Rion Brothers and Tricon. And this is an opportunity that Lawless Allen has to maybe rebuild his brand, I guess, and get some other team to notice him and give him another shot at a full-time Truck Series ride, this time on a more competitive equipment. So yeah, let's see how he does. I'm gonna keep my expectations pretty low, just in case, but This is not as bad of a move as some people think. Again, like I said, Lawless Allen to Tricon on a part-time basis, low risk, high reward move. Overall, for Tricon, I'm giving them a C plus. If only for the fact that they didn't move the needle. They made moves that they didn't move the needle. But the fact that they have Corey Heim back, even if I'm not a fan, even if I don't think he should be in the Truck Series anymore, because again he has nothing left to prove, the fact that they have Corey Heim still, it kind of helps them with the fact that they're gonna have that one guy that will keep the team afloat. At the very least, it guarantees that they will have some presence in the playoffs. So yeah, because of that, they get a C plus. So now that we are done with the Toyotas, let's move on and talk about some of the smaller teams now. Let's continue with Alpha Prime Racing. If you remember Alpha Prime, they ran 3 full-time teams in 2024. For this season, they're going to downsize to a 2-car operation, with their 3rd car being part-time for multiple drivers. Brennan Poole is back in the 44, which is good. You have that stable veteran presence. As for their other full-time driver, check this out. They signed Parker Retzlaff to replace Ryan Ellis. Also, a little bit of a side note, they also renumbered the number 43 to the number 4 as part of the signing. So Retzlaff is going to be driving the number 4. But this is a massive move for a small team like Alpha Prime Racing. No disrespect to Ryan Ellis, he is a decent, serviceable driver. But if you have the opportunity to get Parker Retzlaff, to replace him with Parker Retzlaff, hey, I don't blame the team for doing it. You take that chance. And this is a great move for a team that is looking to build for the future. They finally have that young driver that they can build around for the next couple of years. So this is a great move, short and to the point, B+. The same cannot be said, however, for Retzlaff's former team, Jordan Anderson Racing. Now, this team had a down year in 2024. Not only Retzlaff, but also mostly Jeff Burton struggled. Now, Burton is returning to the 27 as now officially the stable veteran of the team. But to replace Parker Retzlaff, they signed Blaine Perkins. Not the best move when you are coming off of a down year and you have lost your young guy. Not the best move. You could have done so much better than Blaine Perkins. I'm gonna give them a D. Speaking of Ryan Ellis, the guy who Parker Retzlaff replaced at Alpha Prime Racing, he lands at another small team, that being DGM Racing. He's gonna be their full-time guy for the season, running the number 71. DGM would stay a 2-car operation because they have also signed Josh Bilicki to be one of their various drivers for their 2nd car. And they will also have CJ McLaughlin run some races for them on the 3rd car, which is going to be part-time. So far, the only race that has been confirmed is Daytona. It is yet to be confirmed if that 3rd car is going to be making any additional starts, or if McLaughlin is going to make any additional starts for the team, either with the 3rd car or with the 2nd car as part of the driver rotation. That being said, at least they have that full-time guy that they can, focus on for the season. That guy being Ryan Ellis. And every time a small team they sign a full-time driver just to be, just to bring stability to the team, that's a good sign. Now, obviously, it's a pretty low ceiling considering that it's Ryan Ellis and it's in DGM Racing. But every time a small driver signs a full-time guy just to keep the operation afloat, that's just generally a positive sign. So I'm gonna give them a C+ just for that. And on that same token, another team that I'm also going to give a C plus to is SS Greenlight Racing, because just like DGM Racing, they just signed a guy to be their full-time driver. In their case, it's Garrett Smithley. And it is also important to mention that they downsized to a single car operation. They ran 2 cars last year, with both of them featuring various drivers throughout the year. Now this year, they will only be running 1 car, that being the number 14. And they signed Garrett Smithley to be their guy. Now, obviously, Garrett Smithley, he's kind of like that Ryan Ellis type of driver that I mentioned. You know, serviceable veteran. It's not gonna do much. You don't expect much out of him, but at the same time, he doesn't. All he's there for is just to help build the team up, or just kind of be the veteran rock stable presence that keeps a small team together. You know. Again, C plus it is. Every time a small team signs a driver to be there full time, yeah, that's an automatic C plus to me. Moving on with the smaller teams, let's talk about one that we haven't really seen for quite a while. Derek Cope. The man is still alive, if you guys were unaware, and he rebranded his team once again. He revived his race team and he has renamed it Cope Family Racing. The number 70 is back, and in kind of a big way too. They have already announced their driver rotation for the season. They're gonna have Leland Honeyman and Thomas Annunziata running. Each of them, they will be running half the season each. They will be splitting the season in the number 70. 2 guys that I have very high hopes for, especially Leland Honeyman. If you guys didn't know, he drove the 42 car for Young's Motorsports last year. He definitely surprised me. His stats will not blow you away, but he definitely surprised me for the simple fact that 42 car was brand new. That was Young's Motorsports' first full-time season in Xfinity, and he took that car and placed it top 25 in owner points. And Honeyman, I don't know exactly if he finished top 20 in driver points, but if he didn't, he came pretty close. He was right like 21st in points. He did all that in his first season with the team. On a team that was his first full season in Xfinity, and I expected them to kind of fail to qualify for a couple of races over the year, over the season. He ran the full season and even managed to score a couple of top 10s while doing so. So yeah, Honeyman, I would say Honeyman overachieved. Now, yeah, he's back to running part-time, but with that 70 car, with Derek Cope and Annunziata kind of, you know, as his running mate right there, I think this team is gonna turn some heads. They're definitely. I don't think they're gonna fail to qualify as much as you think. They might have like a DNQ or 2, maybe even 3, but I believe that number 70 car, it's not gonna be as much of a backmarker as you think. Especially with 2 guys like, once again, 2 guys that have a lot of promise, that have shown a lot of promise, especially Leland Honeyman. Derek Cobb, actually, for once, he knows what he's doing with his race team. He decided he wanted to go back to becoming a car owner, and in what a way. Signing 2 guys, 2 pretty promising guys for the season. B- it is. I know it's not like none of them are full-time drivers, but 2 promising guys splitting half the season each. That's almost as good as it gets, honestly. B-. B- is fine. While Cope Family Racing may surprise some people for the better, another team that's going to surprise quite some people is Our Motorsports. But not in a good way, unfortunately. They replaced Anthony Alfredo with Chris Wright. Yeah, Chris Wright.
That alone makes them the biggest losers of this entire offseason. Because why would you sign Chris Wright? There were so many better options. Hell, Dean Thompson to Sam Hunt Racing, by comparison, it feels like a downright genius move compared to our Motorsport signing Chris Wright. This is an F move. This is an F. Straight up. I'm giving this one an F. Biggest loser of the offseason by far. As for Fast Pasta himself, Anthony Alfredo, he will be moving over to Young's Motorsports to replace Leland Honeyman in the 42. It is also important to mention, just for the sake of mentioning, because Young's Motorsports, they also have a Truck Series operation. For the Truck Series, they signed Trans Am driver Nathan Burr to be their Truck Series driver for most of the season. I believe it's going to be for like 15 races, the deal. Still remains to be seen. The rest of the drivers are going to fill out the schedule, but at this point, Young's Motorsports, for the Truck Series, they're only like a single car or a one truck team when they used to be a multi-truck operation. And that makes sense because they're now they're fully focused on the Xfinity Series now. Last season with Leland Honeyman definitely proved that they can actually be competitive, or at the very least competitive in the sense that they should be able to qualify for every single race. And especially now that they got Anthony Alfredo, this is just very much doable. Like they don't run the risk of failing to qualify anymore because they got a pretty serviceable driver in Alfredo. That being said, I am not fully sold on the move as some other people are, and here's why. Is Anthony Alfredo really that good of a driver that you are willing to part ways with Honeyman, who you guys were building something with for the season? Because after the season that Honeyman had for Young's Motorsports in that 42 car, I kind of felt like he was going to be their long-term guy that they will be building around for the next like couple of years. After year one, they just let him go in place of Anthony Alfredo. And don't get me wrong, Anthony Alfredo is objectively a better driver, but is he really that much better of a driver that you are willing to part ways with Leland Honeyman, who pretty much overachieved for you that last season? Are you willing to throw that all away to start over from scratch with Anthony Alfredo? Is it really that worth it? If the answer is yes, then you will probably say this is a B+ move, or even an A-. As for me though, since I'm not fully sold on it, and I don't know how much of an upgrade Alfredo will be over Honeyman, because he will definitely be, but I don't know by how much. I'm giving this a B- because I'm just a little bit unsure. I feel like Young's Motorsports, they should have stayed with Honeyman for at least one more year or two before knowing what to do with him. Because letting him go after 1 year, I feel like it gives off the vibe that they gave up on him a little bit too early. Speaking of new teams, another new operation that came up in the Xfinity Series that was formed last year, Viking Motorsports. This was a Ford team because they had a partnership with RSS Racing. Matt DiBenedetto was their driver for most of the season, running the number 38. As a matter of fact, DiBenedetto was their only driver that season. But that being said, of course, they didn't attempt all races. They did attempt most of the races on the schedule. I believe they only missed the first 5 races because this team only popped up in like race 6 of the season. This team is now back full time with Matty D. But what's really got me excited is that they're gonna switch to Chevrolet, and they're also gonna enter in an alliance with RCR, with Richard Childers Racing.
That's huge. That's huge because it doesn't matter how small of a team you are. If you get into an alliance with one of the big teams like RCR or JRM or Gibbs or whatever, if you're a small team and you get into an alliance with those guys, of course, I'm speaking as far as the Xfinity Series goes, you do that, you're automatically going places. And with Matt DiBenedetto, which is as serviceable of a driver as they come, on a full-time basis, yeah, this team is definitely going to turn some heads. This team has already caught my interest. I'm giving them a B+. This team is building. It's only year 2, but this team has already proven that they're building the right way. They're building the right way. Moving back down to the truck series, let's talk about Nice Motorsports next. And this team has got my full attention. And the reason is pretty simple. Caden Honeycutt is full-time now. If you guys don't know, I've been a huge Caden Honeycutt believer. I have been following him since he popped up on iRacing back when I was following iRacing and watching following a lot of iRacing leagues back in 2019. Caden Honeycutt popped up in one of those, and ever since then I've been following him. And then when he made the switch to actual stock cars, when he popped up in some ARCA races, that's when I started, getting interest in him. He won a couple of ARCA races, then he started getting part-time truck starts, and now he's finally full-time with Nice after a great part-time stint for the team. I have really high expectations for him. I definitely believe he can be a playoff caliber driver this year. And if you guys are doubting, or if you guys think that maybe I'm overrating the guy, that Nice Motorsports is a pretty mediocre team, you don't understand how Nice Motorsports work. Every single time Nice Motorsports gets a hold of some elite talent, they don't just build the entire operation around them. They put all of their eggs on that basket. Namely the 45 truck, obviously, because the 45 truck is where their best drivers are. Ross Chastain in 2019, then Carson Hocevar for quite some time, and now Caden Honeycutt. That 45 truck is their kind of like their flagship team at that point. The other two teams are just there for to help funding with that. Matt Mills is back in the 42, and also Christian Rose, which is another ARCA driver, kind of like Andres Perez de Lara, like I mentioned earlier with Spire. But yeah, those are the teammates that he has. But Nice Motorsports is going to be carried by Caden Honeycutt, the same way it was carried by Carson Hocevar, the same way it was carried by Ross Chastain. Well, it's possible that Caden doesn't make the playoffs this year. It's possible, yeah, but I'm betting on Nice Motorsports actually putting all of their eggs on one basket, like I said, on the 45 basket, like I said. I think Honeycutt's gonna make the playoffs, and he's gonna compete for a couple wins in the process. I don't know if he's gonna win races, because you gotta remember Hocevar didn't win races either until it took Hocevar 3 seasons for him to win with Nice, and once he won, the wins just ended up. It opened the floodgates for more wins. I believe he had a 4-win season on the year he got his first career win. I don't know if Honeycutt's gonna be like that, but he's definitely gonna turn some heads, and he's gonna shock the world. A-. I was debating a little bit on what grade to give them. I'm gonna give them an A-, simply because I know that Nice Motorsports, I know how they operate, and I know that if they put all of the resources on Caden Honeycutt, he is gonna give them results. And finally, last but not least, we're gonna be talking about Rion Brothers Racing. This is the team that Frankie Muniz is gonna be racing full time with. The former actor of Malcolm in the Middle is officially racing in NASCAR's Top 3 National Series. And not only that,
Rion Brothers Racing was pretty busy in the offseason as they acquired some assets from Rev Racing, and they will be expanding to 3 full-time teams. The third truck, just like Rev Racing, it will be number 2, and it will feature a driver rotation, just like their second team. So we will see multiple drivers on both the 2 and the 22 trucks, and then Frankie Muniz is going to be full-time on the 33. Some drivers that that have been confirmed to run for either the 2 or the 22 have been Cody Dennison, Tyler Tomasi, Keith McGee, and the like. Obviously, the full roster has not been released yet, but that's honestly what you would expect. It's par for the course when it comes to these smaller teams. They tend to sign these drivers on a race-by-race basis, depending on sponsorship. But hey, at least they got this one guy that they can build the team around, at least for this season, and also the guy that can keep the team, that the team can just flow around, that one full-time guy. So just for that, they get a C. Just for that, they get a C. But yeah, how crazy is it that Frankie Muniz is racing full-time in NASCAR's Top 3 National Series? The former actor of Malcolm in the Middle. Now, obviously, I didn't watch Malcolm in the Middle when I was a kid. I didn't watch a single episode. But I did watch this movie called Big Fat Liar. So I know... and Frankie Muniz portrayed the main character there. So I know who Frankie Muniz is. And man, I'm so hyped. I cannot wait for him to finish mid-pack and say, oh yeah, Malcolm finished in the middle. That's just a low-hanging fruit, I know, but it's just an opportunity at a joke that you just cannot pass up. So yeah, that wraps up all of my teams, all of the that made some changes during silly season and the off season. As always, it was a very busy off season. As you can see, this video was almost half an hour long. But yeah, like and subscribe for more uploads like this. I have set myself a goal that I'm gonna be gaining to get 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year. So it would be I would really appreciate it if you guys support me on that goal and just spread the word around that we are back up. And yeah, catch you guys next video.